What's up everyone, it's Endymion, and if there's one single truth to the ongoing culture war between the fans of media and those who own these franchises, it's that the corporations have lost their connection to their consumer base. Whether it's from pandering to a non-existent audience they so desperately want you to believe exists to the self-hating mentalities academia promotes in their schools, the fact that society is backwards in more ways than one is sadly becoming more apparent as time continues on. This brings me to the topics of this video, which are the surrounding culture war of fans and distancing themselves from the things that they love, and how weirdos like the ones I'll show in this video keep shilling and pretending that everything is fine. And as we go on, you'll see why things like alternative media and even specials like South Park's upcoming Panderverse are necessary to the culture war that's raging on. These weirdos don't want to admit that the reason the culture war exists is because of their inability to connect and understand what their fans want, and to instead blanket everything under the veil of racist ideology. To begin, we have this person named Andreas Cabrera, who hosts a podcast and writes for a site called Geeks of Color. From the name alone, you can gather what this site's entire mission is, which is obviously to highlight people of color in geek-related media. Which from the get-go is a ridiculous concept because these kind of woke weirdos tend to always want to push diversity and inclusion. Yet they also make their websites into echo chambers that segregate and exclude readers based on things they can't control, like their skin color. They also pander to whatever meets their criteria, like how Blue Beetle, in their words, is a refreshingly exciting entry to the DC universe, when universally fans have largely rejected the film and the movie was a massive flop. And the movie is nothing more than a retread of what other superhero films have done before it. The only difference is Blue Beetle is Latino and the movie paints all white people as bad guys, because of course it does. As I've said before, these sites like Geeks of Color exist to segregate and make echo chambers, but what can we expect really? Anyway, back to Andreas. First off, don't harass this person in any way. I just want to dismantle their ideology like I've done many others in the past, so let's do that and have some fun. Andreas has decided to pull some convenient cards when it comes to why fans have such disdain for the media of today. Andreas goes as far as to say fans of Star Wars in particular are racist and misogynistic, because they don't like how Disney made their favorite franchise into a cratering joke where creativity goes to die. There's a lot of hypocrisy in what Andreas says here, but I think it's important to see where he's coming from, and what he has to say before I destroy everything he passes as facts here. So I will tell you what he said, then we will get spicy, and I quote, "A lot of people forget this, but there is a direct correlation between the white supremacist crowd and the unbridled hatred of the Star Wars sequels. I saw in real time as they scouted out the Star Wars fandom as a potential haven for spreading their message of hatred. It started with the straightforward racist approach of hating on The Force Awakens because a black stormtrooper was one of the leads of the movie. When their target audience didn't fall in line with that blatantly racist take, they moved on to good old-fashioned misogyny. The hatred of Rey became a massive point for Star Wars channels as soon as The Force Awakens came out. Nearly every corner of Star Wars YouTube featured this targeted campaign against Rey. This coordinated effort created similar talking points with different variations in order to spread across online spaces. An important thing to remember is that these takes came from the same people. The same ones who were screaming and crying because there was a black lead in a Star Wars movie came from the same spaces as the originators of the hate movement against Rey. That's who we're dealing with. After The Last Jedi, all hell broke loose. The message became even more effective with camouflage talking points that were made to seem more sensible and relatable while still harboring the same theme. They sugarcoated the brazenness of their contempt to appear more reasonable. The problem is this sentiment is still alive and growing within the Star Wars community. We saw it with the hatred against Reva and Obi-Wan, the too many female characters take against Ahsoka, and on it goes. It has become almost indistinguishable from regular Star Wars fandom. Clearly, I'm not saying a dislike or disappointment in a recent Star Wars project automatically equates to the worst of the fandom. However, there is a distinct bad faith portion of the Star Wars fandom that has become effective in their messaging and branding as just speaking the truth. The truth is, online grifters have grown exponentially in recent years, and it's important to remember how a lot of them choose Star Wars as their pop culture watering ground in order to cultivate further hateful themes and capture the attention of an overly eager fan base." End quote. God damn, that was a lot. But anyway, There's a lot to decipher here, but this will be fun to explain. Firstly, the whole fans are white supremacists is ridiculous. Since Star Wars fans come in all colors of people, so by saying this, you're saying any fans of Star Wars harbor these ideas. Which means you yourself are a white supremacist if you like Star Wars, Andreas. How dare you be so open about your racial superiority complex? Oh wait, I forgot you work for a site that segregates people based on the color of their skin. Yet you also complain that fandoms that are segregated over their collective disdain for corporate virtue signaling is bad. Now that's hella ironic, but that's nothing new coming from these woke people. Also, nobody seemed to hate John Boyega and Star Wars either. In fact, it's more correct to say fans were mad Disney treated Finn as a character like a throwaway nobody instead, who goes from an interesting character idea, that being a stormtrooper who rebels against everything he's grown to know, to joining those who oppose them. He's also not force sensitive, he's just a regular man facing an incredible force. That would have been very interesting to explore, but instead, Finn is reduced to running around yelling "Rey" at the top of his lungs the entire time instead. And if anybody hates Finn, it's Disney themselves, since they reduced his presence on posters when marketing the movie to international markets. And to say Star Wars fans hate black people is also ridiculous, since many Star Wars fans themselves are black. So yet again, all you're proving here is that not only are you yourself racist, but you're also kind of a dummy too. Also, are we going to act like Lando doesn't exist? Even when the movies first came out, people loved and have embraced Lando, so this entire part of your pandering is falling apart. It's not looking good for you, Andreas, but you're the one who brought the shovel, so I guess we'll just keep digging. As for Rey, good lord, am I tired of seeing or talking about this character, so I'll just keep it as brief as I can. Fans don't like Rey because she's a Mary Sue. She's perfect in every way. She never struggles, she overcomes everything immediately, and overpowers people like Kylo Ren, for example, in the first movie with literally no training. That would be like a kid who just started karate that same day somehow being able to take out the dojo's most experienced student, literally within minutes of entering the dojo. It's ridiculous. She also overpowers Palpatine, who's apparently so powerful he could overpower Luke and Vader, and somehow he survives getting yeeted down a massive hole. Can you just admit that these movies are lazy and that the lead character is a Mary Sue? Rey being a woman is not bad. If it were, then characters like Princess Leia or Ahsoka in Clone Wars and more would have also been rejected by fans. But instead, people love them, they cosplay as them, and even name their freaking kids Leia after them. So again, you're just grasping for straws. And also, let's not pretend that Palpatine being brought back as your big bad in Rise of Snoozewalker was anything but Disney realizing that Rian Johnson had backed them into a corner creatively. He killed Snoke for no reason, he made Kylo Ren the main big bad, which made zero sense. And Disney's top writers cobbled their brains together, and the best they could come up with is, I don't know, somehow he returned. Like, look at Oscar Isaac's face. You just know this dude randomly yells in the shower when he thinks about that line that he said. And let's not forget how I recently shared how J.J. Abrams himself, who made Awakens and Rise, admitted Disney didn't have any plans for a trilogy before shooting anyway. This is why the trilogy is disjointed, doesn't make any sense, and feels like it was made as they went along, because it absolutely was. And Force Awakens is the blueprint for soulless corporate reimaginings. Since it's just A New Hope again, but they changed the names and faces, but it's all the same shit. They both star a seemingly random person in white clothing on a desert planet, then meets a smuggler who flies them on the Millennium Falcon to fight a big military enemy. They both witness planets getting blown apart by a big space station, to which they enter the space station and they face a guy in black clothes who has a red lightsaber. Then the old guy that helped our main character ends up dying by the hands of the red lightsaber guy, our heroes blow up the space station, and then they live to fight another day. If you even attempt to mental gymnastics your way around The Force Awakens to be anything but a reboot of A New Hope, you're too far gone to think or have any critical thoughts when it comes to Star Wars, let alone pop culture. Stop allowing your brain to be rotted and filled with the member berries of companies that very evidently only see you as a walking wallet instead of a human being. Stop shilling for these companies, it makes you look stupider than you already do. Then you try to blame The Last Jedi for dividing fans, which is really the only part of your entire moronic take that anyone would agree with you on. Yes, that movie was ass, and you'd be insane to not watch that turd and not realize immediately that Disney evidently had no plan for these movies. And they literally just made them as fast as they could in order to capitalize on their investment when they bought the damn thing for 4 billion Fortnite V-Bucks.
It's the fucking home runs, Disney!
Then you try to call fans racist for not liking Reva, but she again is a shallow character that added nothing to the show. And she, yet again, is more the main character in a show named Obi-Wan Kenobi, not Reva. Ahsoka also tanked for Disney Plus, and views are in the toilet for that show. The finale didn't even manage to break 1 million views on a platform with over 45 million subscribers as of the making of this video. Mental gymnastics your brain around that one, Andreas. Then you end by trying to point anyone who doesn't agree with you to be grifters, when it's evidently clear what you're really trying to say is that anyone who doesn't agree with you and your politics to an exact amount is bad and that makes you better somehow. Everything you said in your rant, Andreas, proves that you're not a real Star Wars fan, but instead another corporate parasite that'll eat up any sort of slop that these companies give you, as long as the sounds and visuals look like something that you used to love. Fans like yourself are why these corporations are totally fine with giving us the bare minimum because you're rewarding mediocrity. You're settling for the bare essentials when you used to be given actual amazing stories by people who actually gave a shit. Star Wars and really any media out there that is turned to shit, whether it's Marvel, DC Comics, video game franchises, or whatever else, these things have become diluted and ruined because people like yourself, Andreas, keep dick riding them and telling these corpos what they're doing is okay when it isn't. It's baffling that you can justify what you're being served these days on a dirty bronze platter is anything but shit. And it's pathetic that you're willing to bend on your knees and cry misogyny instead of realizing the Star Wars you knew is never coming back. As long as massive corporations like Disney continue to desecrate it with their politics and horrible creatives. But I think the actual real reason beneath all the virtue signaling bad takes and shitty movies is something not only Andreas but many like him hate with every fiber of their being. They hate that they lost the fandom's trust. They hate that they are no longer the only voice of conversation when it comes to these things. Prior to Disney's Star Wars, the conversation over these sorts of things were kind of still in their infancy. Yeah, okay, there were podcasts around 2010 or YouTubers talking about stuff. But it's nothing when you compare it to the sheer amount that exists today. And that's what these websites and the journalists who cling to them hate the most. In the past, they were the voice of reason because the concept of alternative media wasn't readily available. But now that platforms like YouTube, Twitter, and many others have evolved so much in the past 10 years, these big sites are being steamrolled by people with a computer, a camera, and some editing software. They're mad that they've lost their audience to people who actually speak authentically about things. Geeks of color, or even big sites like GameSpot, Rotten Tomatoes, and places like IGN even usually will never attack the hands that feed. But even IGN is starting to become a little based, and they've called out things like Star Wars or even the whole Baldur's Gate controversy too, which fans have responded to in kind, because at least those 2 times it felt like a major website was connecting to what its readers actually felt. Instead of these corporate shills who like to pretend everything is okay and there's nothing wrong with stuff like Star Wars and more. And that's why people like myself, The Critical Drinker, Nerdrotic, Mauler, Yellow Flash, RK Outpost, Heels vs. Babyface, Disparu, Price of Reason, Think Before You Sleep, and so many others exist. Me and all of those people and more don't just exist for no reason. These channels exist because of the absolute state of what's being pushed onto ordinary people. Recently, in one of Nerdrotic's newest videos, Why Marvel is Failing, he even explains near the end of the video how escapism is important, and he's right. Sometimes all people have to deal with the darkness of the world is escapism. In media like comics, movies, or video games, when you're depressed or life isn't going the way you want it to, you escape for a little and it helps. But when your escapism is beating you over the head with bullshit like they do today, that's why all of these channels and more exist. These corporations are determined to never leave you alone. They want to push their nonsense at every given opportunity for as long as they can onto you. They want you drowning in their politics, in their messaging, and when your escapism gets turned into a lecture from people who hate you, that's why we are where we are. Andreas is the opposite of what people like me fight for. While I am trying with every video I make to change the state of media and how people think to return stuff to a state of common sense, Andreas and people like him want you to eat the bugs, live in your pod, and then pretend you're happy. And it'll all lead to a weird eventual state where shit is so dystopian nothing you do will allow you to escape it. And they're mad that because of the rise of alternative media, that they're not only being replaced, but they're being beaten too. Just look at Eric July's Rippaverse and how well that's all doing. There's no way Marvel or DC would endorse him because he doesn't shill for what they want. So instead, like me and others, he had to create an alternative to comics. Then you have recently how the Daily Wire just announces, hey, by the way, we're making a Snow White project that will embrace the classic ideals of what it was based on, and of course most sites won't even tell you it exists because it goes against their agenda. Instead, they want you swallowing the sludge and enjoying upcoming slop like the Rachel Zegler Snow White flick, because that has modern ideals like girl bosses and shit that has nothing to do with Snow White. And it's also why the upcoming South Park Into the Panderverse special is getting so much buzz. That's not just randomly happening, it exists because it's a direct response to why people are so sick and tired of the shit of today. The massive reception to its announcement wouldn't have mattered much if the same special was made, I don't know, 10 years ago. But due to how bad things have gotten in recent years, it, like myself and more, is a response to what's happening. The Panderverse is coming because idiots can't help but shill and ruin everything around them. Andreas is a moron who is mad they are no longer the voice of reason. But when the voice of reason has lost all reason itself, it makes perfect sense why alternative media and personalities must continue and will create new things. So if you're one of the sensible, common sense viewers who have a working brain between your ears, who can actually tell right from wrong and understand that what we're fighting for is important, I thank you for being here. Like Nerdrotic said, pop culture is culture and you deserve to have your escapism and your entertainment be respected. And these people like Andreas and the corporations he shills for need to come to terms with that or they will cease to exist. And honestly, if that were to happen, maybe it would be for the best. Because when what they're saying does nothing but belittle and attack customers for simply being human beings, would anything of value even be lost? I wager no, but anyway, thank you for watching as always. Subscribe, like the video, and just thank you for being here. Enjoy your media, vote with your wallet, and again, don't harass Andreas. After all, the poor guy thinks the new Star Wars movies are great. Maybe we can start a GoFundMe for him to see if he has brain damage or something. I don't know, we'll see. Anyway, if you want to support the channel more, I got my G Fuel code and the links are in the description and pinned comment. You'll get 20% off. Thanks to my patrons as always, and just thank you so much, really. I appreciate all of you immensely. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.